The Chosen just posted a brand new Season 6 behind the scenes video on their YouTube channel. And in this video, they revealed some important details from the Gospels that we will see in Season 6. I'm Steven, this is You Have Been Chosen. This is a channel where we talk all about The Chosen, break down behind the scenes content, the episodes. If you enjoy this video, give it a like, share it with a friend, and stick around and subscribe for more videos like this. Alright, so what was revealed in this behind the scenes video? So now I'm just going to go through this video just frame by frame. So this is where they have the inscription on the cross with the name of the person being crucified. So if we go to John 19, there they crucified him and with two others, one on either side, and Jesus between them. Pilate also wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this inscription, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Aramaic, in Latin, and in Greek. And so here's where it's written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. And if you know any of those languages, please put down in the comments what it says. Personally, I only know some Greek, so I can tell there's some Greek in there. And this is Dismas. We met him in the last video that I did where Chris, the Chosen Insider, introduced the actors for Dismas and Gestas, who are the thieves that are crucified on the left and the right of Jesus. And Dismas is the one on the right that believes. And right here, this is Gestas. And so we can see right here that this Roman is actually going to break Gestas's legs. And we can read here in John 19:31 through 37, since it was the day of preparation. So this is right after Jesus dies. And so that the bodies would not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day. The Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. So we can see in these verses that the two thieves are not actually dead. That Jesus had died, but that the other two thieves are still alive, and so to make them die faster, the Romans break their legs. So we can see that happening in this shot right here, how the Roman, he's going to break Gestas' legs, so he'll die faster. And then in this shot right here, the Romans are fighting after a robe. So this is from Mark 15:16 through 20. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, so that's the cloak that we see here, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they were striking his head with a reed, and spitting on him, and kneeling down in homage to him. So they're mocking him through all this pain, all this torture, right? And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. And so we can see in these shots here that the Romans have this purple cloak, and it seems that that's something they're fighting over. And then we can also see some of the religious leaders that we've seen all throughout The Chosen, Gadara, Shmuel, and Yanni, and they are mocking Jesus. So we can read about that in Matthew 27:39 through 42. And those who passed by, this is Jesus on the cross, deride him, wagging their heads and saying, so right, they're shaking their heads, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days." Remember, he said that in episode 3 of season 5, and really he was talking about his body, that he's dying, and then after 3 days he'll come back to life. "Save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him." And so they're mocking him, and they're challenging him. They're saying that he's not really the Messiah because he's being crucified, but the irony is that he is the Messiah because he's being crucified. Jesus died on the cross so that we could be saved. The Messiah, the Savior that the Jews looked forward to, came to save us by dying for us. Now we get some really interesting shots. I showed this one before about the Romans, but who do we see in the background? We see Atticus, right? Atticus is here in the background. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but to me it looks like Atticus is the highest ranking Roman here. And so we can see in the scriptures that the highest ranking Roman is mentioned. So after Jesus dies, there's a lot of things that happen. In Matthew 27:51 through 56, it says this, "And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, And the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, so this is after he's raised later, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. I made a whole video about that where I think there's a character in The Chosen who has already died that I think will come back because of this verse. You can check that out at the end of the video if you want. But pay attention to the next verse. 54. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." So who's the centurion that this passage is referring to? Well, I think in The Chosen that it is Atticus here. Atticus seems to be the one that's over all of these other Romans. And in this shot right here, I'm going to back it up a little bit, we can see that they're all falling over, right? I think this is because of the earthquake, and Atticus is here in the background still. So I think Atticus is the centurion that's mentioned in the passage, and that because of all the events of the show, as we have seen Atticus over the course of the show observe the ministry of Jesus and even see him multiply the loaves and the fish, and did he see him walking in water, did he not? That is still kind of unclear, but we know that Atticus knows that there's something different about this guy Jesus. And I think this is going to be the moment where he realizes, truly, this was the Son of God. And the next verses say, there were also many women there looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. And so we can see a lot of them in this shot right here. There is Mary Magdalene. There's Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, who are Jesus' brothers. So I think that's also talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus. And in The Chosen, she's called Salome, but the mother of the sons of Zebedee is right here. And Eden is right here, Tamar, Martha, Joanna. Everybody's getting really emotional over this. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to see a reenactment like this of the crucifixion. A really crazy experience. Almost like you're actually there back in the first century. Here's Mary of Bethany. And I also want to point out that John is here. He's the only disciple at the crucifixion. And we know this because he writes about it in John, his gospel, that he is an eyewitness. And we can see this in John 19, 25 through 27. It says in verse 25, but standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, Woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour the disciple took her to his own home. John oftentimes refers to himself in his gospel as the disciple whom Jesus loved. And so in verse 27, when it says that from that hour the disciple took her to his own home, this is John writing about himself. And here, I think, is the moment when Jesus tells John this. When Jesus tells his mother, Woman, behold your son, and when he tells John, Behold your mother. We can just see them weeping here. And the final shot that I want to talk about, I think, proves the theory from one of my previous videos about this guy, who is the bird vendor from season 5, episode 2, when Jesus cleanses the temple. He's the one that sells Tamar the doves, or actually gives Tamar the doves for free, because she's from Ethiopia and he's from Libya, and she reminds him of his sister. And so in that video, I talked about how I think that the two of them are going to get together, and that this bird vendor, because he's focused on so much and talks about his two sons, is actually Simon of Cyrene. And this is where we can see Simon of Cyrene in Scripture. Mark 15, 21 through 22. This is when Jesus is carrying his cross to be crucified. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who is coming in from the country. So again, in season 5, this bird vendor comes from out of the country, right? He comes from Libya, which is Cyrene, and he goes to Jerusalem to sell the doves to make money to provide for his two sons. Well, in this verse, it says that he has two sons. It says he is the father of Alexander and Rufus, and he's compelled to carry his cross, to carry Jesus' cross. And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. And so before in season 5, we were speculating how this guy could be Simon of Cyrene because he's the bird vendor coming out of the country, providing for his two sons, like Simon of Cyrene has Alexander and Rufus, 2 sons. And I also gave the theory that in Romans 16:13, this is a letter from Paul to the church in Rome, and he's giving the believers to greet this guy who is Rufus. So he says, "Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, also his mother, who has been a mother to me as well." Why does that name sound familiar? Because lots of scholars think this Rufus is the same Rufus who is the son of Simon of Cyrene. So who is this mother? So the bird vendor in season 5 implies that his wife has died, and he's kind of hitting on Tamar a little bit. And so I think that Tamar will become the stepmother of Alexander and Rufus, and that she is actually the mother that Paul is speaking of in this passage. And I think that this picture confirms it, because Simon of Cyrene is the one who brought Jesus' cross to the place of the skull, and we can see this guy here at the place of the skull. And so I think that just confirms it. Not sure if it confirms the Tamar being like a mother to Paul theory yet, but maybe that would happen sometime later down the line. That'd be pretty cool. So anyway, what did you think of this video? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more Chosen behind the scenes videos, stick around and subscribe, and like this video if you enjoyed it. I'm Steven, this has been You Have Been Chosen, and hopefully I'll see y'all next time.